That's very well established. So if you've had infection, please wait for 90 days to get the next shot. So we've seen relapses even in a week. So patient has had symptoms, tested positive, symptoms have gone, tested negative, and 7 days later they've again got symptoms and tested positive. So definitely possible, and Omicron is a variant that is causing it, even causing relapses in previous variant infected people, and even in the same ones as well. Yeah, so testing is very important. I think you should test if your symptoms are there immediately so that you know exactly, whether you are positive or not. So I would always advise you to get tested. Just not testing and isolating is not a very scientific viewpoint. As I said, the earlier wave had these long-term complications. Mostly, one was long COVID, which consisted of brain fogging a lot. So people had even minor things they would forget very easily. They would not understand. Was becoming simple things were becoming too complicated for them to do. The second was inappropriate sinus tachycardia, in which your heart rate became very fast at even the minorest of exertions, like getting up from bed and going to the toilet. Your heart rate would suddenly shoot up to 160, 170. Breathlessness was another one, and then of course the heart attacks, which are still coming in Omicron. We've seen patients with relapse very commonly, which was not so much in the Delta variant. So you recover from Omicron, and about a week or 10 days later you again fall sick and again test positive. So that is one complication we are seeing. We've started seeing already brain fog patients. We have to be cautious because there's all likelihood that it can be the case, because even in the last wave, severity of disease had no correlation with all these things. So very mild cases also developed. Some of them did develop such complications. So the fact that Omicron is not creating a very significantly severe disease, it is not causing pneumonia in patients, has no correlation with the fact that it will or will not develop long-term cardiac complications for the patients. Not much, because see, first of all, we don't understand the antibody test very well as laymen. We need to know that most of the antibody tests that are being done are qualitative antibody tests, which we see a number there and say, oh, my antibodies are very high, which is not true. They are all mostly qualitative antibodies being tested, and unfortunately none of the major labs are testing the real antibodies which are necessary, which are the neutralizing antibodies. So a quantitative neutralizing antibody test is actually the significant test that you should do, and we did it a lot when the plasma banks were in vogue and we wanted to get the plasmas donated. So everyone who wanted to donate plasma had to get their neutralizing antibody quantitative test done. But that's a specialized test, takes some time and it's expensive. So most labs would tell you your IgG antibodies quantitatively, whether they are present or not, doesn't really make much of a difference. And please keep in mind that the number being mentioned there is not really the level of your antibodies. So it is a qualitative yes or no test. Mostly the number is just showing that if it is above that number, it is present, has no relation to the actual levels of antibodies. So you need to see the detail of the report, that whether it is a qualitative test or a quantitative test. Most of you who get that report would have a qualitative test done. Doesn't really impact. The only situation I can think of that it will help is in this current wave. We've had a lot of asymptomatic and mildly symptomatic infections, and as we know, you should defer your vaccination because the vaccine is also a prothrombotic event in addition to the infection, and that we've seen has led to the heart issues. So if you are concerned whether you had that infection natural or not, and you are going for your second or third dose, that is the only situation I can think of where you get your antibodies tested, and please do test the quantitative ones. And if you have high levels of antibodies on the quantitative test, then maybe you can defer your next shot for a while.